What if I told you that the iconic red buildings of Washington, D.C., the very symbols of American history, were born from a place that now lies in ruin? Just 20 miles upriver from the nation's capital, hidden in a dense forest, are the bones of an industrial giant. This isn't just a pile of rocks. This is the story of the Seneca Quarry, a tale of ambition, incredible ingenuity, Gilded Age scandal, and the forgotten people who physically built our capital city. Along the banks of the Potomac River in Maryland, crumbling red stone walls stand silently as the forest slowly reclaims them. These are the remains of the Seneca Quarry's stone-cutting mill, a place that, in its heyday, was a noisy, bustling hub of industry. It produced a unique and beautiful red sandstone that came to define the look of 19th century Washington, D.C. Today, most hikers and bikers pass by without a second glance, totally unaware that they're moving through the cradle of the capital's history. This is the story of the stone that built a nation's identity, only to be left behind by time. Our story begins long before DC's grand monuments were even a glimmer in an architect's eye. In 1781, a prosperous Georgetown merchant named Robert Peter bought a huge tract of land along the Potomac. This land held a secret, a geological treasure known as Seneca Sandstone. Formed over 200 million years ago, this stone had a remarkable property. When first pulled from the earth, it was surprisingly soft and sometimes lilac gray in color, making it easy for stonecutters to carve. But once exposed to the air, iron oxide in the stone would literally rust, hardening the block and transforming its color into that deep, rich red it's famous for. This unique quality made it a perfect building material, easy to work with, yet incredibly durable once it was set in place. For decades, the Peter family developed the quarries, but its true potential was locked away. The stone was just too heavy and too difficult to transport to the growing markets in Washington. But a revolutionary piece of engineering was about to change everything and launch the Seneca Quarry into the pages of history. The game changer was the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, the C&O Canal, an audacious feat of the 19th century engineering. Stretching for miles alongside the Potomac, this waterway became the lifeblood of the quarry. In a beautiful bit of historical irony, Seneca Sandstone was used to construct parts of the C&O Canal itself, including numerous locks in the magnificent Seneca Aqueduct that I talked about last week, which carried the canal over Seneca Creek. With the canal operating by the 1830s, the Peter family's fortunes skyrocketed. Heavy barges could now be loaded with massive blocks of redstone and floated directly down to Washington, D.C., opening the door to a flood of lucrative government contracts. The most significant of these was for the new Smithsonian Institution building. In 1846, 15 different quarries bid on the project. The building could have been granite or marble or even yellow sandstone, but the quarry's owner, John Parke Custis Peter, a great-grandson of Martha Washington, submitted a bid so low it was almost suspicious. The building committee, intrigued, sent their architect to investigate. He came back with great news. there was more than enough stone to build the castle. And so, between 1847 and 1855, the iconic Smithsonian Castle rose on the National Mall, its fairy tale turrets and deep red walls forever linking it to the Seneca Quarry. The castle was just the beginning. Seneca Sandstone became the signature look of Victorian Washington. It formed the striking facade of the Luther Place Memorial Church, gave a formidable appearance to the D.C. jail, and was used in countless homes in the fashionable neighborhoods of DuPont Circle and Adams Morgan. This wasn't just a building material. It was the color palette of a growing capital, a symbol of its ambition. Imagine the scene in the mid-1800s. The air at Seneca would have been thick with red dust, the quiet woods alive with the constant clang of hammers and chisels. Dozens of quarries dotted the landscape. The roar from the massive stone-cutting mill, where steam-powered saws sliced through giant blocks, would have been deafening. And through it all, you'd hear the braying of mules as they pulled heavy barges along the C&O Canal. The workforce that powered this enterprise was a microcosm of America. Immigrants from England, Wales, and Ireland worked side by side with African Americans. Historical records strongly suggest that before the Civil War, many of these African American workers were enslaved men. A federal payroll from an 1823 project at the quarry lists workers who signed with an X because it was illegal to teach enslaved people to read and write. Others were noted only by a first name, a common practice for enslaved individuals whose pay was likely collected by their owners. After the war, freedmen continued to be essential to the quarry's operation until its final days. The faces of these men, captured in rare archival photos, tell a profound story of the hard, physical labor that underpins our nation's grandest structures. High on a hill overlooking the chaos, a stone house was built for the quarry master, a silent testament to the hierarchy of this industrial world. That house, now restored, still stands today. Like so many stories of the Gilded Age, the quarry's history followed a dramatic boom and bust cycle. The Civil War was hard on the Peter family's fortunes, and in 1866 they sold the quarry. The new owners, the Seneca Sandstone Company, had big plans. They expanded the stone-cutting mill in 1868 and aimed to capitalize on the post-war building boom. But their ambition was matched by their corruption. In what became known as the Seneca Stone Ring Scandal, the company engaged in blatant influence peddling. They sold stock at half price to senior Republican politicians, including to Ulysses S. Grant a year before he became president. While Grant was seen as personally incorruptible and sold his shares well before the collapse, the company's leadership was rotten. It was horribly mismanaged, and its directors, particularly Henry D. Cook, took out massive unsecured loans they couldn't possibly repay. One of those fatal loans came from the Freedman's Bank, where Cook also sat on the board in a clear conflict of interest. When the financial panic of 1873 hit the nation, J. Cook and Company collapsed, triggering a widespread depression. In 1876, the Seneca Sandstone Company followed, declaring bankruptcy. The company's failure was a contributing factor in the subsequent collapse of the Freedman's Bank, a catastrophic event that wiped out the life savings of hundreds of thousands of formerly enslaved people and their descendants. The quarry was shuttered for 7 years. It would be bought and sold several more times, even surviving the Great Flood of 1889 that wrecked the C&O Canal. but the end was near. By the turn of the 20th century, the best, most accessible stone was gone. Just as importantly, architectural tastes had changed. The deep, brooding red of Victorian sandstone was out. The new century demanded the bright imperial white of marble and limestone. In 1901, after more than a century of operation, the Seneca Quarry closed for good. The story of the Seneca Quarry is a powerful reminder that so much of our history is hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be uncovered. Do you know of any other hidden historical sites with incredible backstories like this one? Let me know in the comments below. It's through sharing these stories that we keep them from being forgotten. For over 100 years, nature has been patiently reclaiming the Seneca Quarry. What was once a landscape scarred by industry is now a dense forest of sycamores and poplars, the ground tangled with vines. The quarry site itself is now part of the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal National Historic Park. Visiting in the winter, when the foliage has died back, is the best time to see the ghosts of its past. Wandering through the woods, you can suddenly come upon the towering, skeletal walls of the old stone-cutting mill. The roof is long gone, but the scale of the building is still awesome to behold. You can see the chisel marks on discarded blocks and the steel anchors where derricks once lifted impossibly heavy loads. The restored quarrymaster's house stands on a nearby hill, a lonely survivor. The Seneca Quarry Historic District, which includes the mill and the master's house, is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, a quiet acknowledgement of its importance. But there's no grand visitor center here. No perfectly marked trails leading you through the ruins. It remains a lost place, a secret kept by the woods. The ruins of the Seneca Quarry are so much more than the decaying remains of a 19th century business. They are a tangible link to our past. Every block of red stone in the Smithsonian Castle, every foundation in DuPont Circle, began its journey here, hewn from the earth by the hands of immigrants and African Americans whose own stories are largely lost to time. The quarry tells a story of incredible industry powered by the C&O Canal. It tells a story of Gilded Age ambition and the dark side of capitalism, where fortunes were made and lost, and where financial collapse could devastate an entire community. To stand among these ruins today is to feel the weight of that history. You can almost hear the echo of the hammers and the grinding of the saws. These stones aren't silent. They speak of the ambition that built a capital and the shifting tides of time that left it all behind. They remind us that history isn't just found in pristine monuments, but also in the forgotten, crumbling places that made them possible. And that is a story worth preserving.